The 9,652nd meeting of the Security Council is called to order. The provisional agenda for this meeting is the situation in the Middle East. The agenda is adopted. In accordance with Rule 37 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite the representatives of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Syrian Arab Republic, and Turkey to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. In accordance with Rule 39 of the Council's Provisional Rules of Procedure, I invite Ms. Itsumi Nakamitsu, High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, to participate in this meeting. It is so decided. The Security Council will now begin its consideration of Item 2 of the agenda. I wish to draw the attention of Council members to document S/2024/414, a letter dated 28 May 2024, from the Secretary General addressed to the President of the Security Council. I now give the floor to Ms. Itsumi Nakamitsu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, I thank Council members for the opportunity to brief you once again on the implementation of Security Council Resolution 2118 on the elimination of the chemical weapons program of the Syrian Arab Republic. Since the last consideration of this matter by the Council, and consistent with established practice, the Office for Disarmament Affairs has been in regular contact with its counterparts in the OPCW Technical Secretariat on activities related to Resolution 2118. Mr. President, since the Council's previous meeting on this matter, the OPCW Declaration Assessment Team, or DAT, has continued its efforts to clarify all outstanding issues regarding the initial declaration and subsequent declarations submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic. At the time of the submission of the latest monthly report from the OPCW Technical Secretariat, the 27th round of consultations between the DAT and the Syrian National Authority were underway in Damascus. Furthermore, as a result of the 25th and 26th round of consultations, the OPCW Technical Secretariat assessed that sufficient information had been gathered to consider 3 outstanding issues as resolved. I am encouraged to see the positive impacts of this renewed cooperation, which began with the resumption of consultations between the DAT and the Syrian National Authority in October 2023, after a gap of more than 2.5 years. However, further cooperation is needed to resolve the remaining outstanding issues. Out of the 24 outstanding issues opened by the DAT since 2014, 17 still remain unresolved as a result of date of this monthly report. I wish to emphasize that I have been advised that the substance of these outstanding issues concerns and involves, inter alia, undeclared research, production, and/or weaponization of unknown quantities of chemical weapons, and significant quantities of chemical warfare agents and/or precursors, and chemical munitions whose fate has not yet been fully verified by the OPCW Technical Secretariat. The OPCW Technical Secretariat has also advised that in addition to the substance of the 17 outstanding issues previously reported by the DAT, serious concerns remain regarding the presence of unexpected chemicals in the samples collected by DAT between 2020 and 2023 at several declared sites. I urge all parties involved to not only maintain but to enhance cooperation going forward so that all outstanding issues regarding the initial and subsequent declarations submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic can be resolved. Mr. President, with regard to inspections of the Barsa and Jamraya facilities of the Scientific Studies and Research Center, or SSRC, I have been advised that the OPCW Technical Secretariat is planning the next round of inspections in 2024. However, as of the date of this month's report, the Technical Secretariat has not received any new information which may resolve the issues related to the presence of a Schedule II chemical in the sample collected during the November 2018 inspection, and to the origin and usage of chemical of dual-use nature observed by the inspection team during the September 2022 inspection at the SSRC Barsa facilities. The OPCW Technical Secretariat will further engage on these issues with the Syrian National Authority during the next round of SSRC inspections. The OPCW Technical Secretariat has also requested information regarding the unauthorized movement of the 2 cylinders related to the chemical weapon incident that took place in Duma on 7 April 2018, which were allegedly destroyed in an attack on the chemical weapons production facility. I have been informed that, as of the date of this report, the Technical Secretariat has not received a response to this request. Mr. President, the OPCW Technical Secretariat remains fully committed to implementing its mandate aimed at verifying the fulfillment of the Syrian Arab Republic's declaration obligations under the Convention, decisions by OPCW policy-making organs, and, of course, Security Council resolutions. However, as has been previously emphasized, full cooperation by the Syrian Arab Republic with the OPCW Technical Secretariat is essential to closing all outstanding issues. Considering the identified gaps, inconsistencies, and discrepancies that remain unresolved, at this time, the OPCW Technical Secretariat assesses that the declaration submitted by the Syrian Arab Republic still cannot be considered accurate and complete in accordance with the Chemical Weapons Convention. I call upon the Syrian Arab Republic to continue its cooperation with the OPCW Technical Secretariat and respond with urgency to all of the Technical Secretariat's requests. Mr. President, earlier today, the OPCW Technical Secretariat issued a new report of the Fact-Finding Mission, or FFM, regarding incidents that occurred on 9 August 2017 in Khalib al-Tawa and 8 November 2017 in Al-Balil. The report S/2295/2024 concluded that the information obtained and analyzed in line with the FFM's mandate was not sufficient to provide reasonable grounds for the FFM to determine that toxic chemicals were used as a weapon in the reported incidents. I understand that the fact-finding mission is currently preparing upcoming deployments and will report to the Executive Council on the results of its work in due course. The Investigation and Identification Team, or IIT, also continues its investigations into incidents in which the fact-finding mission has determined that chemical weapons were used or likely used in the Syrian Arab Republic and will issue further reports in due course. Mr. President, distinguished members of the Security Council, As the Secretary General has stated before, any use of chemical weapons is unacceptable and a clear violation of international law. I echo his calls to end impunity for all those who dare to use such weapons, especially against civilians. The United Nations will continue to support all efforts to uphold the norm against chemical weapons and to relegate these dreadful weapons to history. I urge the members of this Council to unite on this issue and show leadership in demonstrating that impunity in the use of chemical weapons would not be tolerated. The UN Office for Disarmament Affairs stands ready to provide whatever support and assistance it can. I thank you very much for your attention.
I thank Ms. Nakamitsu for her briefing. I now give the floor to those Council members who wish to make statements. I give the floor to the representative of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Undersecretary General Nakamitsu, for your briefing. Mr. President, Syria continues to blatantly ignore its obligations to comply with the Chemical Weapons Convention and Resolution 2118. For the past decade, multiple, I repeat, multiple independent investigations have concluded the Assad regime repeatedly used chemical weapons against its own people. Still, the Assad regime has yet to fully account for or destroy its chemical weapons arsenal, nor has it accepted responsibility for the atrocities these weapons caused. To that end, we welcome the ongoing work of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons to investigate Syria's residual chemical weapons capabilities in the face of continued obfuscation, and we look forward to its future reports. We continue to be impressed by the rigor the OPCW brings to each of its investigative efforts, meticulously collecting and analyzing evidence from a multitude of sources to reach irrefutable conclusions. This important work is necessary so those responsible for these attacks can be held to account. There can be no impunity for chemical weapons use. The United States has long been concerned the Syrian regime retains residual chemical weapons capability. And indeed, the OPCW continues to uncover new alarming evidence. Last month, the Director General reminded OPCW states parties of the presence of unexpected chemicals in samples collected by the Declaration Assessment Team between 2021 and 2023 across several declared sites. Such results clearly demonstrated the Assad regime has neither declared nor accounted for the full history and scope of its chemical weapons program. In the face of continued noncompliance, the OPCW Conference of States adopted the forward-looking decision invoking Article 12, Paragraph 3 of the Chemical Weapons Convention, recommending states parties take, quote, collective measures, unquote, to prevent the transfer to Syria of dual-use chemicals and equipment. This decision also aims to prevent the same dual-use chemicals and equipment from falling into the hands of non-state actors, including terrorist groups. The United States encourages all our fellow Security Council members to call for the full and robust implementation of this decision. The OPCW investigation and identification team's Maria report, which found evidence of the use of chemical weapons by ISIS in Syria, is a strong reminder that chemical materials in the wrong hands are a real threat to all. We laud the professionalism, dedication, and determination of the Syria Special Missions. The United States will continue working with partners across the world to bring an end to the regime's chemical weapons program and promote accountability for the use of chemical weapons in Syria and elsewhere. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of the United States for the statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
President, Russia like a host of other delegations on the Council, has on many occasions underscored that looking at the chemical file of Syria once a quarter would be ample. However, as today's briefing has shown from the High Representative on Disarmament, Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu, even that seems excessive, given the lack of developments on the ground on this topic. Essentially, in the 3 months since the last meeting on it, no substantive changes have really taken place. Once again, the Council is proposed to discuss a copy and paste monthly report from the General Director of the OPCW, Fernando Arias. It is different from the previous report by 2 factual proposals for holding the 27th round of consultations between the Syrian authorities and the OPCW mission on the assessment of their declaration, and the outcomes of this will be provided to the Council in due time. So why then convene a separate Security Council meeting to discuss this? In order so that some Western capitals can tick a box and say, and once again read out their ideas to the camera to condemn a government that they don't like. This approach devalues a discussion on the implementation of Resolution 2118 and undermines the authority of the Council, which, rather than just simply emptying an empty thing into a vacant thing, they could have spent their time discussing more relevant topics. We have no doubts that today's meeting will just be another way of Western countries to practice their anti-Syrian rhetoric. At the same time, Syria is demonstrating openness to cooperate with the OPCW. We welcome the renewal of consultations with the Syria's national body with the mission on the assessment of Syria's initial declaration under the CWC. This work was de facto frozen for 2 years because of the demands from the Technical Secretariat. Nevertheless, Syria, as a gest of goodwill, fulfilled the conditions put forward by the organisation, which allowed work to move out from the dead end that it found itself in. This once again shows the openness of the Syrian authorities and their readiness to full cooperation with the OPCW, which allowed them to hold the 25th, 26th and 27th round of consultations between Damascus and the OPCW Technical Secretariat. The outcomes of these consultations was the closing of the data of 3 questions that were outstanding on the initial declaration from Syria. Thus, the work on the Syria's initial declaration is underway with a full and unconditional cooperation, assistance of Damascus. Here we would note that the Syrian Arab Republic remains the most verified state party to the CWC. We believe that our Syrian colleagues will tell us more about this in detail today. In contrast to the OPCW's act, which has been turned by the US and the Euro-Atlantic allies into an instrument of serving their own geopolitical interests, a lot of questions is raised because of this. The Russian Federation reaffirms its position that the legitimate attribution of responsibility for chemical incidents, which does not comply with the mandate of the OPCW and it imposes on the exclusive prerogatives of the UN Security Council. The Security Council has not delegated its authority to the organisation and nor to its secretariat. Thus, the work of the investigation and identification team not only is fully outside of the legal authority of the CWC, but also violates the UN Charter. The Euro-Atlantic allies led by the USA once again are blatantly violating the CWC and the UN Charter, providing different extra authority to the OPCW, and its secretariat is working as if it's a Security Council Sanctions Committee. The IIT reports are biased and absolutely and are not based from have good basis on an expert point of view. The only aim of the IIT is at any cost place responsibility on Syria for the episodes of the use of chemical weapons without any convincing proof of it. Would underscore the implementation of any restrictive measures on international fora based on unfounded accusations are categorically unacceptable. From year to year, we hear the same type of statement about the use by some countries of chemical weapons or their use of the stocks of them which are not supported by serious verified proof. The results of the work of the fact-finding mission, for example, is a clear example of this. For the Russian Federation and a whole host of other like-minded states, the reports of the IIT or the FFM are not accepted because they are politically motivated and nor are the politically motivated decisions by the OPCW, much like any attempts to bring them to the platform of the UN Security Council. We believe that there is no point in counting on a comprehensive discussion at the Council on the implementation of Resolution 2118. Against the backdrop of the upcoming meetings at the Security Council, we believe meetings like today's to be not a rational way of spending time and resources. Thank you very much for your attention, President.
I thank the representative of Russian Federation for her statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of Switzerland.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Madam Nakamitsu, for her presentation. In its last statement to the Security Council on this issue in March, Switzerland welcomed the holding of the 26th round of consultations between the OPCW's Declaration Assessment Team, the DAT, and the Syrian government. Since then, it has been possible to resolve 3 of the 20 points still outstanding in relation to Syria's initial declaration. We also take note that a 27th round of consultations took place in Damascus last month and look forward to hearing the results. Switzerland supports this recent resumption of cooperation between the OPCW and Syria after many months of interruption. This is a crucial step towards full clarification of the 17 points that remain unresolved, which is in line with Syria's commitments in this regard. Switzerland recalls that verifiable, tangible, and scientifically plausible answers to these points are one of the conditions for Syria to regain its rights and privileges as a state party to the Chemical Weapons Convention. To achieve this objective, Switzerland has full confidence in the OPCW and salutes the meticulous work, professionalism and integrity of all its teams, including the fact-finding missions and the investigation and identification teams, which must be able to operate without hindrance in the field. Their work is fundamental, and their integrity and professionalism are beyond doubt. Furthermore, Switzerland is concerned about the threat emanating from non-state actors using chemical weapons, as revealed in February by the 4th report of the OPCW's Identification and Investigation Team on a chemicals weapons attack carried out by the Islamic State organization in Maria. Switzerland has condemned this attack and demands that those responsible be brought to justice. Mr. President, with Resolution 2118, adopted unanimously in 2013, this Security Council made a clear commitment against the use of chemical weapons in Syria. For more than 11 years, regular meetings of this Council have served as a reminder of the importance of preventing the development, production, stockpiling, use and transfer of such weapons and of ensuring their destruction. Resolution 2118 also reflects the firm conviction of the Security Council and the international community that those responsible for the use of chemical weapons in Syria must be held accountable. The fight against impunity must help to ensure that the ban on chemical weapons is respected and that they are never used again in Syria or anywhere else in the world. In this respect, we welcome the formal cooperation between the OPCW and the International Impartial and Independent Mechanism for Syria. Switzerland will continue to take the strongest possible stand against the use and proliferation of chemical weapons by anyone, anywhere, and under any circumstances. Our collective security and the credibility of the instruments of the disarmament and non-proliferation architecture that guarantee it are at stake. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Switzerland for the statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to deliver this joint statement on behalf of the A3+, namely Guyana, Mozambique, Sierra Leone, and my own country, Algeria. We thank Mrs. Izumi Nakamitsu, High Representative for Disarmament, for the briefing. We welcome the participation of the representative of the Syrian Arab Republic, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Turkey. Mr. President, the A3+ reiterate the firm belief that the use of chemical weapons anywhere, by anyone, and under any circumstances, must be condemned, and punity for such a crime under international law is not acceptable. We take note of the content of the 128th monthly report of the OPCW, covering the period from April to May 2024. We also acknowledge the submission of the 126th monthly report, dated 15 of May, on progress achieved by the Syrian Arab Republic regarding the destruction of its chemical weapons. The A3+ encourages the Technical Secretariat to continue its effort to clarify the Syrian Arab Republic's declaration by addressing the identified gaps and consistency or discrepancies that remain unresolved. To this end, we acknowledge the important role of the tripartite agreement between the OPCW, UNOPS, and the Syrian Arab Republic in facilitating the Secretariat's activities regarding the full elimination of the Syrian chemical weapons program. We, therefore, encourage the extension of the tripartite agreement upon its expiration on 30th of June 2024. We also encourage the Syrian Arab Republic to continue its cooperation by submitting the relevant explanation, document, and amendment to the outstanding issues in accordance with the Chemical Weapons Convention. In this regard, we note with appreciation the collaboration of the Syrian Arab Republic with the Technical Secretariat, particularly in allowing the ongoing 27th round of consultation between the Declaration Assessment Team and the Syrian National Authority in Damascus. And we look forward to the report on this consultation in due course. Notwithstanding the recent encouraging development, the A3 remains concerned about the slow pace of progress in effort to close the Syrian Arab Republic chemical weapons file. In light of the finding from the report of the OPCW investigation and identification team regarding the Marea incident, the A3+ reiterates its grave concern about threats posed by acts of terrorism involving the use of chemical weapons. We urge continued high-level engagement to address the Syrian chemical weapons file based on these findings to build momentum, conclusively resolving outstanding issues. The A3+ calls upon the Syrian Arab Republic to sustain its collaboration with OPCW in line with Resolution 2118 and the Chemical Weapon Convention as a critical measures toward the resolution of protracted issues. We also call on the Syrian Arab Republic to declare all chemical weapons and their production facilities in its possession, organize the next round of consultation with the Declaration Assessment Team, and solve outstanding issues in order to definitely close this file. The A3+ remains committed to the imperative against the use of chemical weapons and to all efforts aimed at prohibiting their development, production, acquisition, stockpiling, retention, transfer, or use. We reaffirm our continuing support for Resolution 2018 and underscore the need for definite closure of the issues pertaining to the Syrian chemical weapons file. I thank you, Mr. President. If you permit now, je voudrais dire quelque chose.
I now like to say a few words in French.
L'Algérie.
Algeria, but I think also the A3+, have worked on the documents made available to us by the Secretariat. These documents are lacking, insufficient, and we cannot participate in the work of the Council of Ministers with investigations and research that is conclusive, because we are not in a position to have access to the documentation that is necessary for us to be able to make our contribution to the Security Council. And I would like to officially state that the Algerian declaration is flabbergasted at the obstacles that have been placed in the way of this attempt to go further with this research for the good of international peace and security. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Algeria for the statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of Slovenia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the High Representative and Under Secretary Ms. Nakamitsu for her briefing. I also wish to acknowledge the hard work of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons. Slovenia commends its constant, professional, and impartial action to ensure the implementation of the Chemical Weapons Convention. Mr. President, let me begin by reiterating our resolute condemnation of any use of chemical weapons. We will never tire of condemning and fighting against the use of chemical weapons anywhere, and by anyone, be it a state or non-state actor. In this vein, we fully support the holding of the Security Council meetings on this issue, including meetings on the use of chemical weapons in Syria, in accordance with Resolution 2118. Mr. President, while welcoming successful work of the OPCW fact-finding mission in Syria and the investigation and identification team, as well as the resumption of consultations between the Declaration Assessment Team and the Syrian authorities, we voice once again our concern at the many unanswered questions regarding Syria's chemical weapons program. The findings of the international investigation bodies confirm that Syria has, in fact, concealed a part of its chemical weapons program in violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention, and worse, has used chemical weapons in at least 9 confirmed cases in the past 10 years. We express our deepest sympathy for the victims of chemical weapons use. We strongly believe that those abhorrent crimes cannot remain unpunished, and that we owe it to the victims and survivors to take action. Accountability for the use of chemical weapons in Syria must be ensured. We call on all parties to the Chemical Weapons Convention to continue fighting impunity by sending a clear signal from the international community that such use will not be tolerated. Once again, we call on Syria to comply with its obligations under the Convention, declare all its chemical weapons production and research activities, destroy any remaining secret caches, and fully cooperate with the OPCW. This should include providing unfettered access to sites, documents, and people needed to resolve all outstanding issues and any other issues resulting from OPCW-mandated investigative activity. Mr. President, we must spare no effort to prevent the re-emergence of these horrific weapons, which must be relegated to history books as a warning and deterrence. To this aim, the attention of the Security Council is fundamental, even more so when there is a lack of substantial progress in the implementation of this Chemical Weapons Convention by one state's party. Only a multilateral approach with respect for international law at its center can pave the way to a world free from the terror and the destruction brought about by chemical weapons. Slovenia will continue to support, in the Council and elsewhere, all efforts to resolve the outstanding issues on this file. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Slovenia for her statement. Now I give the floor to representative of France.
I wish to thank High Representative Izumi Nakamitsu for her briefing. President, we are meeting once again to note the lack of real progress towards the eradication of the Syrian chemical weapons program. More than 10 years ago, the Syrian Arab Republic acceded to the CWC. The Syrian regime has, however, continued after this date, in violation of its commitments, to use chemical weapons against its own people. The investigation and identification team of the OPCW has demonstrated this, particularly in the case of the attack on Douma, which caused more than 43 victims in April 2018. France condemns any use of chemical weapons wherever, whenever, whoever uses them, and under whatever circumstances. Transparency is still not guaranteed in terms of the state of the program and stocks of Syrian chemical weapons. The most recent report of the Director General of the OPCW from the end of May shows, like previous reports, that the declaration of the Syrian authorities cannot be considered as accurate and complete vis-à-vis the requirements of the Convention. The report underscores that 17 substantial questions linked to the declaration of the Syrian regime are still outstanding. It also reports, in addition, serious concerns of the DAT regarding the samples of chemicals that they collected in several sites between 2020 and 2023. We note that the 27th cycle of consultations between the Declaration Assessment Team and the Syrian authorities was held at the end of May. We hope that the OPCW will be able to report to the Security Council on this soon. We would once again recall the importance of the fact that for Syria to cooperate fully with the OPCW, and it should comply with its international obligations. This is a condition for it to regain its rights as a state party to the CWC. This right was suspended in 2021. The use of chemical weapons poses a threat to international peace and security. Thus, the Security Council must, in line with Resolution 2118, remain actively seized of the matter. We also reiterate our support to the OPCW teams and their work to ensure respect for the CWC, as well as documenting cases of use of chemical weapons, identifying the perpetrators, and allowing for accountability. Any use of chemical weapon by state or non-state actors is unacceptable. France will remain mobilized with its partners to ensure the prohibition norm is respected, a ban on these inhumane arms, and we should also fight impunity for those responsible for these chemical attacks. Thank you.
I thank the representative of France for her statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of Malta.
Thank you, President, and I also thank you, SG Nakamitsu, for her informative briefing. At the outset, we thank you and your delegation for convening this important meeting. Malta continues to support regular discussions on this important file, as mandated by Resolution 2118. According to the latest OPCW report, and I quote, "Serious concerns remain regarding the presence of unexpected chemicals collected by the DAT." End quote. These were collected during multiple missions between 2020 and 2023 at several declared sites. It is deeply troubling that over 10 years after its accession to the Chemical Weapons Convention and the passing of Resolution 2118, the Syrian Arab Republic has yet to declare and destroy all its stockpiles. This is unacceptable. The Syrian Arab Republic must fully comply with its obligations under the Convention and Resolution 2118. Any attempt to produce, acquire, stockpile, or retain chemical weapons constitutes a clear violation and must be condemned. Furthermore, there are still 17 outstanding issues in the declaration presented by Syria. In light of the persisting gaps and inconsistencies assessed by the Secretariat, declarations still cannot be considered accurate and complete in accordance with the Convention and with Resolution 2118. This is deeply regrettable. Once again, we urge the Syrian Arab Republic to resolve all outstanding issues in its declaration and to make progress towards the full elimination of its chemical weapons program. In doing so, it must cooperate in a full and transparent manner with the OPCW Secretariat, as mandated by Resolution 2118. We take note of the fact that the 27th round of consultations between the DAT and the Syrian National Authority was taking place during the reporting period. We look forward to the report on the substance of these consultations. We welcome the planning by the Secretariat of the next round of the inspections of the Barzah and Jamraya facilities of the Scientific Studies and Research Centre later this year. The OPCW fact-finding mission is also preparing upcoming deployments, and we call on the Syrian Arab Republic grant full access to OPCW personnel in line with Resolution 2118. President, the use of chemical weapons is unconscionable and completely contrary to the legal standards of the international community. Malta strongly condemns their use by any actor under any circumstance. We must collectively ensure that the perpetrators of chemical weapons attacks are held accountable. Effective accountability means justice for the victims, as well as prevention of future attacks. In closing, we reiterate our full support for the OPCW and its technical teams. They carry out their mandate independently and impartially, in accordance with international standards. All Council members should recognise this and refrain from dangerous rhetoric that aims at casting doubt on their integrity and delegitimizing their work. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Malta for her statement. Now I give the floor to the representative of Japan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I thank Ms. Izumi Nakamitsu, Under Secretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, for her briefings. The use of chemical weapons should never be tolerated anywhere, at any time, by anyone, under any circumstances. It is our shared responsibility to hold those who have used chemical weapons accountable and bring justice to the victims. Japan commends the impartial, independent, and professional work conducted by the OPCW. Japan strongly supports the ongoing work of the fact-finding mission and the investigation and identification team. The IIT's reports, including the most recent one on the use of the chemical weapons in Malaya in 2015, play a crucial role in establishing the truth regarding the alleged instances of chemical weapons use in Syria and identifying the perpetrators. We strongly oppose any attempts to undermine their invaluable work. The use of chemical weapons by Syria remains a clear threat to international peace and security. It is truly regrettable that we have not seen concrete progress on this file since our last meeting in March. The latest monthly report by the Director General of OPCW showed that continuing discrepancies, gaps, and inconsistencies in Syria's declarations remain unresolved. We are seriously concerned about the presence of unexpected chemicals collected by the Declaration Assessment Team between 2020 and 2023 in Syria, which may indicate potentially undeclared research and development or production of chemical weapons. Syria has not provided accurate and complete declarations or documents requested by the OPCW Secretariat to resolve the outstanding issues. In this regard, Syria must comply fully and faithfully with its obligations under the Chemical Weapons Conventions and Security Council Resolution 2118. Mr. President, Japan once again calls upon all Security Council members to urge the Syrian government to declare and eliminate its entire chemical weapons program to prevent the recurrence of the use of chemical weapons. Japan believes the Council should remain seized regularly on this matter. I thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Japan for her statement. Now I give the floor to representative of Ecuador.
Presidente.
Thank you, Mr. President. My delegation is very grateful for the valuable, informative briefing of the High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Madam Izumi Nakamitsu. Ecuador recognizes the efforts of the Technical Secretariat of the OPCW through the Declaration Assessment Team to clarify all outstanding issues relating to the initial declaration and subsequent declarations presented by the Syrian Arab Republic. Transparent dialogue and good faith cooperation between the Syrian authorities and the technical teams of the OPCW is the best way to obtain results and accountability. In this regard, we look forward to the outcome of the 27th round of consultations. I would join in the call to the Syrian authorities to remain committed to the full implementation of their obligations under the Chemical Weapons Convention and relevant resolutions of the Security Council, including Resolution 2118. Ecuador reaffirms its support for the work of the OPCW, and we are convinced of its integrity, impartiality, objectivity, and independence of its technical teams. Any incident that involves the use of chemical weapons must be addressed with absolute transparency and must be subject to exhaustive investigations. There cannot be and there must not be any impunity for the use of chemical weapons. In conclusion, my delegation reiterates its commitment to the full implementation of the provisions of the Convention, including the condemnation of the use of chemical weapons by whomever, wherever, and under whatever circumstances. Thank you very much.
I thank the representative of Ecuador for the statement. Now I give the floor to representative of China.
President, I thank High Representative Izumi Nakamitsu for the briefing. On the question of chemical weapons, China's position has been consistent. China is firmly opposed to the use of chemical weapons by anyone under any circumstances for whatever purposes. We hope that the world will become a chemical weapon-free world at an early date. China has consistently called for dialogue and consultations to resolve the outstanding issues relating to the initial declaration of chemical weapons in Syria. We welcome the 27th round of technical consultations between OPCW and the Syrian government. We encourage the Technical Secretariat to work with the Syrian government on the basis of mutual respect and cooperation on an equal footing, strengthen communication and meet each other halfway with a view to jointly resolving the outstanding issues as early as possible. In its investigation and accountability work on the alleged use of chemical weapons, OPCW shall strictly observe the provisions contained in CWC and the relevant verification annex to ensure compliance with the established procedure, reliability of evidence, and credibility of its conclusions. We hope that the DG and the Technical Secretariat will make concrete efforts to uphold the technical nature of OPCW. Thank you, President.
Representative of China for the statement. Now I give the floor to representative of United Kingdom.
Thank you, President, and thank you to High Representative Nakamitsu for your comprehensive briefing. The United Kingdom would like nothing more than for this Council not to need to hold any more meetings on chemical weapons, as this would mean that chemical weapons were no longer being produced, stored, or used anywhere in the world, and that perpetrators of chemical weapons attacks have been held to account. Sadly, that is not the case. Chemical weapons are not a historic problem in Syria. They're a present reality. The Assad regime continues to possess chemical weapons today. Thousands of munitions and hundreds of tons of chemical agent remain unaccounted for. Analysis of samples collected at 2 sites in April 2023 indicate further undeclared processing and production activity in Syria. We're gravely concerned by these developments, and we join your call, High Representative, for greater cooperation by Syria with the OPCW Technical Secretariat. The UN-OPCW Joint Investigative Mechanism and the OPCW's Investigation and Identification Team found that the Assad regime used chemical weapons, including sarin and chlorine, against its own people 9 times, after acceding to the Chemical Weapons Convention in 2013. Syria has failed to make a complete and accurate declaration of its stockpiles, despite the best and repeated efforts of the OPCW Secretariat, nor has Syria met its obligations under this Council's Resolution 2118. Independent international investigations have also now attributed a total of 4 uses of chemical weapons to Daesh. President, failure to hold Syria to account would undermine the international non-proliferation architecture. The UK will continue to pursue accountability for the use of chemical weapons by state and non-state actors. We fully support the work of the OPCW's Syria missions and the International Impartial and Independent Mechanism for Syria, which assists in the investigation and prosecution of international crimes committed in Syria. We applaud the OPCW's impartial and patient work. Until Syria fully declares and destroys its chemical weapons, this Council should remain focused on this ongoing threat to international peace and security. I thank you.
I thank the representative of United Kingdom for her statement. I shall now make a statement in my capacity as the representative of the Republic of Korea. I would like to first join others in thanking High Representative Nakamitsu for her briefing and also OPCW team for their impartial, independent, and professional work. Resolution 2118 reflects the firm conviction of the Security Council and the international community that chemical weapons must never be used again by anyone, anywhere, at any time, under any circumstances. It also reaffirms those responsible for the ghastly use of chemical weapons must be held accountable. The Republic of Korea also shares these beliefs and stands together with the councils to ensure its full implementation. The slow progress on the issue of chemical weapons in Syria is thus a matter of deep concern. Syria's initial and subsequent declaration regarding the reported use of chemical weapons left many questions to be answered. The OPCW confirmed 3 issues were cleared in March, but we still have 17 other outstanding issues even after the 27th round of consultations with the Syrian government. Meanwhile, the Council has also been bogged down over the legitimacy of the attribution mechanism of the OPCW. However, I will reiterate why we should retain our common commitment to the full and effective implementation of Resolution 2118. The Syrian chemical weapons dossier is not only related to revealing the use of chemical weapons in the past, but has also vital relevance at present and even more in the future. If we stop here and leave the issues unresolved now, we end up opening the window of impunity for the international crimes of chemical weapons use. Therefore, we can close this file only when all questions are answered. All chemical weapons programs are destructed, and stringent verification of its destruction is in place. In addition, achieving the universality of the convention is an important task. Currently, there are 4 states which remain outside of the treaty, including the DPRK. We call on those states to join the CWC and stress that the international community should work together towards achieving the full universality, building upon the grand milestone of complete destruction of all declared chemical weapons. As such, we should send a strong warning to the countries that violate the convention, as well as the countries have not yet joined the CWC. In particular, the issue of chemical weapons in Syria holds great significance to the Republic of Korea because of one non-state party located right next to us. In this light, the Republic of Korea will remain steadfast to ensure accountability and to prevent any further use of chemical weapons by anyone, anywhere, at any time, and under any circumstances. Preventing the recurrence of the use of chemical weapons in Syria or beyond must continue to be a priority of the Security Council. The silent cries of those killed en masse in eastern Ghouta 11 years ago with these weapons implore us to do so. Now, I resume my functions as President of the Council. I now give the floor to representative of the Syrian Arab Republic.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, President. President, my country, Syria, has on many occasions expressed its condemnation of the use of chemical weapons wherever and wherever by whomever and under whatever circumstances. Syria has always cooperated with the OPCW and has acquitted itself of all of its obligations under the CWC. As part of its ongoing cooperation, Syria has fully facilitated the holding of the 27th round of consultations between the DAT and our National Committee for the period from the 21st to 30th of May 2024. The 2 parties engaged in technical discussions with a view to making progress and closing outstanding issues, as was the case during the 27th to the 26th series of consultations, which covered 3 outstanding issues. Currently, the 27th series of consultations, it was agreed to hold field visits to several sites to take samples and to meet some witnesses. The Syrian National Committee requested the Declaration Assessment Team to draft a plan of action to adopt a new way of working to make a qualitative change and set forth the necessary path to address remaining outstanding issues. Syria welcomes the announcement made by the Technical Secretariat, which plans the work to come of the Declaration Assessment Team, which thus reflects the concern of the National Committee to cooperate with the Technical Secretariat. Moreover, the National Committee submitted its monthly reports, the most recent being the report 126, on the relevant activities on the territory of the Syrian Arab Republic over the last 3 months. We are looking forward to the high-level meeting between Ministers of Foreign Affairs and Syrians abroad, who is the chair of the Syrian National Committee, and the Director General of the OPCW as soon as possible. We invite the focal point to prepare for this meeting in good faith. President, Syria reiterates its request to the Technical Secretariat of the OPCW and Western countries who continue to politicize this file and to use it for their own hostile ends to not prejudice the consultations underway between the National Committee and the Declaration Assessment Team. I repeat, should not prejudge the outcomes of ongoing consultations between the National Committee and the DAT. We would ask them to refrain from launching false accusations and undermining cooperation that is underway between Syria and the OPCW. My country regrets what is contained in Resolution 127 of the OPCW, repeating baseless accusations and claiming that Syria isn't acquitting itself of its obligations. The report ignores Syria's cooperation to facilitate the provision of information provided to the DAT. This report prejudges the outcomes of sample analysis by carrying out a negative evaluation and an unscientific evaluation before the end of discussions that are currently underway, even before the end of the 27th round of consultations between the assessment team and the Syrian National Committee. President, some people have mentioned the threat posed to peace and security in the Middle East. The main threat to peace and security in the Middle East remains the arsenal of the Israeli occupying arsenal, which is nuclear, biological and chemical arsenal, as well as military, technical and financial support from the United States of America and their allies from NATO, who provide the occupying authorities all sorts of weapons and equipment. And we are seeing every day the destructive effects of them in Gaza and in the repeated attacks by Israel on Syria and Lebanon. These grave threats and mass violations of international law, and they are being ignored, and they've politicized the Syrian chemical file, and this clearly shows a manipulation of disarmament mechanisms, distracting them from their mandate and undermining their credibility. This is why some Western countries created what was called the IIT, which is an illegitimate body that runs counter to the CWC. In addition to the politicization of reports of the fact-finding mission, and in its report which are a far cry from the professionalism and objectivity and scientific impartiality